The Portland Trail Blazers pulled off the greatest trade in franchise history by dealing the number 3 pick for Zion. Oh, wait. No, that didn't happen. The Trail Blazers used their most valuable asset to draft a 6'2" point guard who's 19 in their attempts to help their superstar 6'2" point guard who's about to turn 33. Okay. I guess we'll have to go with that. Today on the Blazer Focus Pack podcast, hi, I am a very annoyed Aaron Fentress, joined by Craig Birnbach. As you well know, the Blazers drafted Scoot Henderson, number 3 overall in the 2023 NBA draft. Leading to elation for some fans and leading to frustration for some other fans and some media who wanted to see them make a big splash. Craig, I think you pretty much came into the draft feeling like maybe nothing was going to happen, or you were probably kind of certain nothing was going to happen. I had hoped that they were going to pull something off, but not only did nothing happen, Craig, I was told that they didn't even receive a phone call while on the clock, and that leading up to that, the offers were so weak that they just had no choice but to keep the pick and draft Scoot Henderson. So my first question to you before we jump into our list of topics here, were you at all surprised by what went down last night?
I was not surprised they didn't trade the number 3. I am surprised they drafted 3 guys. Like, I can't believe I'm in shock that they did nothing. That there was nothing. Like, they didn't, Nurkic is still on the team. Simons is still on the team. They drafted Kyle Murray and then a French guy that's apparently a really, highly thought after second round draft pick. But I'm like, nothing? Like, you realize that your assets are no longer worth as much. It's like buying the car. Like, once you drive it off the lot, once you make the pick, it's not as valuable. It doesn't mean it doesn't have any value, but it's not as valuable because now you've picked a guy at a position that now they have to love that guy. And if they love that guy so much, they could have traded with you to get him, that part shocked me. I just can't believe they did nothing on draft day. And it feels like the worst way you can have a great draft. I mean, their draft picks were smart. They were, solid. They have potential to be great. And it's like, what's that elephant in the room? Oh,
I saw a big giant elephant in the theater room where we were dressed in a Lillard jersey with its arms folded and looking like it was going, really?
Yeah. So you can't separate them. It's just, in a way, I feel bad for Blazer fans. I feel bad a little bit for Joe Cronin, but he made his bed. I mean, you just drafted what you said. What was the word that he used?
Transcendent.
Describing Scoot? Transcendent player.
Is that better than generational?
You don't get – it's the same, but fancier. I mean, it basically means this player can take you to the ultimate level. That's what transcendent means. And you drafted that guy, and yet your fan base is going, what? And you're the player that matters most in your franchise history, possibly. If, obviously it's debatable. Bill Walton won a championship. Clyde Drexler almost did. He was absent from the conversation.
Well, I think that's,
and I want to commend you.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, he's not. They tried. They couldn't talk to the Lillard situation. You tried to ask those questions. Give you credit. Joe Cronin, one of the nicest people I've dealt with in professional sports. Super nice guy. He tap danced around those questions so well and didn't lie. We talked to Damian on Tuesday. Well, it's Thursday night. Hello. I don't care if he's in Europe or Mars. He's got a phone. And you have not talked to him. You talked to his agent. So that I'm just saying, it just stinks that This is an A. There's no way to grade. If you grade the draft, it's an A. It's an A. I mean, you got 2 first-round draft picks, one that's, a fantastic player. I don't know if he's generational. I don't know if he's transcended, but it was a no-brainer. This is my thing. The draft was over, Aaron, and I went, I could have done that on Fantasy Sports Auto Draft. Like, literally, no one had to come. You would do Fantasy Sports. You know, the guy that forgets he accidentally puts the CBS Fantasy on Auto Draft, and it drafts for you, and it just takes the top player off the list. The Blazers could have been on Auto Draft, especially now hearing that they didn't have phone calls. There was no, who are you going to pick at number 3? I could have done that draft. Look at the top of Jay Billis's list while I'm watching ESPN. Oh, there's that Murray guy. Let's take him. And then we get to the second round. Like, take the guy who's on the top of the list. I don't know what was offered. I don't know what wasn't. This is what I'll say about there being no trade. General manager's job is to make trades. That's what they're supposed to do. Other teams make trades in certain situations. The Blazers' track record is, once again, no chips in. Like he said, all chips in, no chips went in. And now Damian Lillard has to make a decision, which if we believe him, which my default with Damian Lillard is believe what he says, well, I don't think that's going to be a great conversation about how they're going to move forward with this current roster.
Ooh, tell me how you really feel.
Oh, it is what it is. Like, I don't know. It's not complicated, right? He said, I don't want to play with 19-year-olds. You drafted 2 more 19-year-olds, maybe 3. I don't know how old the guy is.
Murray's actually 21 or 22 because he played 3 years of college. And it was Chris Murray, not you said. I think you said Keegan.
I said Kyle Murray. It's Chris Murray.
Chris, yeah.
It's Murray. It's the other twin. It's the one not in the NBA.
And he was projected to go in the teens by most people. So, like Cronin said, they were happy to see him fall.
Good pick.
So that's great. And he's a versatile guy, and he's at least going to be serviceable, but he's still a kid. He's still going to be a rookie. Okay, so here's the dealio as we dive headfirst into topic 1. I tried to break this out because we could just go.
Yeah, but I don't care. I'm not breaking it all up.
You can go. It's
all big. It's all one big blob of stuff.
Rogue here and there. I'm not trying to contain you. We don't want to. We can't. We don't even try to contain you. We just hope to maybe I don't know. Anyway, so okay. First things first. So I don't blame Cronin for not making a trade because from what I was told was that things available involved the Blazers giving up not just the three pick for a player maybe they thought was not as good, but giving up a ton. Like Ant had to be in there with Sharp is in the one trade, right? And so it was like, well, we're not going to do that. Like we want the guy, but we're not giving you Sharp Ant. It's just too much. Or they were being offered guys that there's just no way. And I'm not sure. I know Paul George was discussed. I'm not sure it was George for number 3. But if Cronin did George for number 3, I think we all would be like, dude, what are you doing? Right? That's just too much for a 33-year-old who can't stay healthy. Paul George would be the absolute perfect fit, right? I would do Ant in the 23rd. Clippers need a point guard. They get a pick. I don't know if that makes them. It doesn't make. I don't think it makes them worse just from the fact that Ant's healthy and Ant can score and Ant's going to put up numbers. So I do that, but I'm not doing number 3 for Paul George. That doesn't make any sense. Zion was discussed, but that was dead a long time ago. I was told like that came and went pretty quickly. Bridges, as was reported and as I was told, they just wanted too much, And so the players that they could get straight up, it wasn't worth it. They believe Scoot out the gate, aside from experience, is going to be better and better long term. So if that's the case, then yeah, you keep the pick. It just blows my mind. I feel like you look at San Antonio, and they put this up on the board during the draft, ESPN did, where they showed how they got David Robinson in 87 or 88, Duncan in 97, and then now they're getting Wembanyama. And then you look at the Blazers, and it's like Dave 6'2", CJ wasn't number 1, but CJ 6'3", Ant's a good player now 6'3", and their big pick at number 3 this year is 6'2" Scoot Henderson. And so that's the thing that kills me. If this had been Miller, then at least I still think he'd be too young to contribute right away, but at least he's 6'9", right? He gives you some height.
He plays
and
a position of need.
The two main positions of need are small forward and then probably center. That, at least you're like, okay, at least they got a guy who plays a position of need. In this case, you got a guy who's absolutely redundant on this roster because he plays behind your best player. And I asked Scoot about this on the Zoom. I'm like, dude, usually number 3 picks are going to teams where they're going to start and be the guy. You're coming to a team where that your position is manned by one of the 75 greatest players of all time and arguably the greatest player of all time for this franchise who plays the exact same position you do. And he said all the right things. We can work together. I think it'll be a good fit.
Of course he did.
I look forward to playing off the ball, or he can play off the ball some. And then Cronin was asked the same thing. How are you going to juggle Scoot, Dame, Anthony, and Sharp? And he tried to put the math together and then stopped himself mid-sentence, it seemed like, because he realized, it just doesn't add up. So clearly Simons has to go, and we're going to get to that in a second. So, but my big thing here is that this is just the NBA guys messing with Portland. It's saying, we're going to put you high in the lottery. We're going to let you get a quote-unquote generational talent. And by the way, transcendent means beyond or above the range of normal or merely physical human experience. That sounds like a god to me, right? So when you say things like transcendent,
that's kind of what it is.
That's what you're telling me. And I'm not going to say he's not going to be, although I'm going to get to something regarding that. I'm going to jot that in here in a second. I'm going to get to something about that here in a minute, about how godlike this guy may or may not be. But it's just not anything that moves the needle in any way, shape, or form up. Like it is a non-starter for me. And you've been doing this podcast with me enough to know that I'm the master of finding silver linings. I'm always like, well, if this happens and that happens and this guy comes back. Remember, I had to do a market correction like 4 times because I had the Blazers getting back to number 1. Then I was like back to number 4. Then I was back to number 6. And then I was like remaining in the NBA. Right? So I'm very optimistic. I have no optimism about this at all. We sat through Dame and CJ. I said in 2016 it's not going to work. It didn't work. Ant, whom I love, putting him with Dame, is not going to work. It ain't working. Now Scoot is supposed to work? No, it ain't working. And he's 19. I'd rather have CJ. If you told me right now what's a better duo, Dame CJ or Dame Scoot, Dame CJ all day. Dame Ant or Dame Scoot for at least 2 years, Dame Ant. Ant's going to light that kid up if they're ever in training camp together. Ant's been playing 5 years in the NBA. Ant's dropped 40 on fools in the NBA. He's not worried about no Scoot Henderson. He's going to blow right by that guy. Get any shot he wants, anywhere he wants. It's not even going to be a thing. So, yeah, my whole thing with this is that he may be a great player, but he's not a great player for what they need right now.
Yeah, and let me say this, and I've said it all along, been very consistent. What they did last night might be the best thing, for the franchise, because I did not see a trade being able to happen because of exactly what Joe Cronin said, that, well, when you look at it and you start talking to people, the list of people that you would be willing to trade the number 3 pick for becomes really small. I'm like, duh, that didn't happen on Thursday. That's been going on. I mean, none of this is – he also talked about, with the new collective bargaining agreement and the salaries. I'm like, duh, you didn't just learn this Thursday. So I think that this long-term, your better chance, and I've said it all along, to win a championship is to start over. Unfortunately, trade Dame, get more, assets or more players that are in the 20 to 21-year-old range, and hope that he is a transcendent player, and hope that the reason why you didn't trade Sharp, that you were right, that he is an all-star. Hope that Murray is a really solid NBA player. Heck, if Grant wants to stick around, and he doesn't get hurt and age too much, maybe when he's 32, they're playing for a title. But the problem that happened here is Joe Cronin made his own bet. He said at the end of the season, he said it at the trade deadline, I was so anxious to put all my chips in, but we didn't do it yet. But we're gonna wait. Don't you worry. Hey, Dame, you're right here. Don't worry. We're gonna go for it. Then they tanked, and they got a lottery pick, and they said, "Yep, we're gonna go. We're gonna build around Dame." And Dame said, "Hey, man, at the end of the season, I want to stay, but I do not want to play with more 19-year-olds. I do not want to be part of a rebuild." The draft lottery came. They got the 3rd overall pick, so they all knew who the 3 were. Right? Again, didn't just happen Thursday. That I guess one of these guys is only 19. Like, everybody knew who 1, 2, and 3 was going to be. They didn't know the order maybe between 2 and 3. And what did they say? They said, he basically said, we're going to try to trade this pick to get an elite player to build around Dame. And then he didn't. And again, I'm not saying it was the wrong move for the franchise, but when you tell everybody you're going to do that, 2 things happen. 1, you probably lose a little leverage. I don't know how much, but you lose a little. And 2, when you don't do it, people are disappointed.
Right.
Look, that was not a press. Look, I went to a lot of press conferences after drafts. When they drafted Damian Lillard, it was the atmosphere was fantastic, and no one knew. They knew what they had. Media and fans didn't know what they had because he played at
Weber State.
He played at Weber State. But that is not the atmosphere you get for drafting 3rd overall. Like, that sucks. That's the way it was. It was like no one wanted to ask a single question about Scoot. You guys did because you're nice, right? You added 1 or 2. But it was like, how soon do we get to the Damian Lillard? And you went first, so you decided the second question. That's what you'll do. You'll wait 1 question, right? That part stinks. But he made his bed. He said he was going to do this. He told Dame he was going to do it. Dame said, hey, I'm going to wait to see what they do, but I don't want to play for 19-year-olds. And then they drafted 19-year-olds. And the only argument is, well, he's not a regular 19-year-old. Yeah, but you didn't say that before, and you knew it. So what were you going to say if you drafted, if Scoot went 2, were they going to trade out then? Or were they going to tell us the 6'9" guy was transcendent? Right. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part. Like, this wasn't a pop quiz, man. This was your final. Like, you had all year to study. And then in the end, you acted like the questions were, these are kind of new questions. This new CBA. There was this player's transcended. He's not the regular 19-year-old. And, hey, there aren't a lot of players that are really, 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 really awesome that we could get. I'm like, this isn't new. So that was where the disappointment is. But in the long run, it might end up being the right thing.
Let me ask you this, though, because this is what I'm struggling with. If Scoot is a god, which Cronin said he basically is, he's transcendent, and everyone keeps saying he's generational, which just starting to drive me bananas even more and more every time I hear it. If he's this great, how come teams weren't lining up around the block to come get this guy and not asking for Ant and Sharp as well? How come it wasn't Toronto with Siakam having 1 year left on his deal saying, we'll do Siakam and some salary filler for this guy because he's transcendent? Zion, I get. I never really bought the Pelicans were going to trade Zion because Zion, to me, is potentially transcendent if healthy, right? That guy, to me, that's what transcendent looks like to me. LeBron's transcendent. Zion could be. Wembenyama looks transcendent. Kareem was. Magic, Jordan. That's transcendent to me. Scoot looks like he can be a really good point guard in a league that has seen a lot of really good point guards come and go, especially in the last 15 years. So what are we missing here? Because it doesn't add up.
Well, it's speaking out of both sides, and you have to do it. I mean, if all those things are true, then the players would have been available. If what he said about how young players and their salaries, manageable salaries, are so important, then again, other teams would want to do that. And there would be plenty of players with huge contracts that they want to get off of. I mean, I don't know what he's going to be. I'm going to hope like heck for the Blazers' sake and Blazer fans' sake, he is transcendent. The issue that I have with that isn't that he might not be great, but that even the players that people are comparing him to were not transcendent. I mean, Russell Westbrook and Derrick Rose are the two that are used the most, right? Because he's not a smooth shooter, but he's super athletic and he's around that size. Well, Derrick Rose won an MVP and so did Russell Westbrook, but neither one won a title and neither one of them are transcendent. They're really great players, but neither one of them is as good. I mean, Derrick Rose is better than Damian Lillard for like 2 years. You know what I mean? Like those years he had were amazing, but then injuries slowed him down. But, Damian Lillard's better than them. His career is better than them. So you have a transcendent player. His name's Damian Lillard, and you just drafted his backup.
Exactly.
Like, who's not going to be a backup? Like, he's not going to be a backup. This play off the ball crap is ridiculous. You don't draft, if you drafted a transcendent point guard to play him at an off guard at 6'2", that's criminal. And you didn't. You also said when asked, you drafted the same position that you already got 2 guys at it. You already did, you did that with Simons. When you drafted Simons, you had Damian Lillard, and he's still here. And now you got to move Simons because he's not as good as Damian Lillard or not as good as Scoot. So, but right, exactly. But I mean, you can't tell me. You said you draft the best available player. This is what Joe Cronin said, and I respect it and believe it. You draft the best available player, regardless of position, and then you figure it out. Well, you know what you have to figure out? One of them got to go. And it's probably the guy that's going to ask to go. Because in the end, it's over. Joe Cronin threw it all on Damian Lillard's plate. They said, yeah, we want him to stay here. We want to figure it out. We want to play them both together. Please don't make us do that. Yeah. Like, the best thing that they're making Damian say what he said, just keep with his script, which was, hey, guys, I love you. I love it here. I want to stay. But, hey, let's be honest. I'm going to be 33. We haven't played for a championship. If you think that we're going to get there by drafting a 19-year-old, adding it to the 20-year-old, we're not. So if you do that, I'm probably going to ask to go. And now they did that. And now they're saying, yeah, we think it can work. And no, I don't think he'll leave. Why? Why don't you think he'll leave? Why? Like, he didn't tell us why.
Here's why. And we talked about earlier, I talked about my optimism. I'm just going to throw out some optimism, but I don't believe it. I'm just saying right now up front, I don't believe it. Okay. The only thing they can do at this point is magically turn Ant and whatever into a guy as
say Paul George. Say Paul George. Be great.
A guy as good as Grant, at least as good as Grant, right? And then do well with the mid-level. If you added a guy as good as Grant and you added a pretty strong veteran with the mid-level and you brought back Winslow and you brought back Matisse, now you have some veteran depth, which was lacking last year. And then maybe with that, you can mask some of the youth issues. And then also if Shaedon, your other transcendent talent, if he can make a big leap, because if he makes a leap mentally and is more reliable on offense and defense to be in the right spots and do the right things, his offensive skill set is going to be ridiculous. We've already seen it. So that's sort of like adding, because he wasn't that last year. Last year he was highlight reel, but just a mess. If he's no longer a mess and a highlight reel, that's just like adding a player in its own right. So there is sort of a pathway that's very, very, it's kind of fleeting, where maybe they can get enough dudes to where Dame looks around and goes, okay, me, Shaedon, some mystery guy, Grant, Nurkic, or maybe they get Ayton, plus Scoot's backing me up, can play some too. Matisse can play some too. We got a mid-level guy who can play the 3. And, you start piecing together, maybe he's like, okay, we'll try and see what happens. Like, to me, that's the only thing. Anything short of that, there's no reason to bring back Dame. There's just none. And even if you believe those two can play together and Scoot's going to grow fast because he's not a normal 19-year-old and blah, 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 what are we talking about? We're talking about at best you're playing. Maybe you win that game, you get in the 7th, 8th season, and you get, say, 8th seed, and you get rolled. Just like Kobe at 19, shooting air balls against Utah. You know what I'm saying? And you're out. So why would you want to do that as opposed to trading Dame where he can have a chance to win and you get what? Another lottery pick next year. Because I guarantee you, Scoot, Ant, Shaden, and whatever, Grant's gone, and whatever else you throw out there, that team's going to be in the lottery again because it's too young. And you're going to get another lottery pick. And maybe this time you get into a situation where the transcendent generational player that you have to draft is actually taller than 6'5", right? Maybe you can get someone 6'8" who can play the 3.
And he doesn't have to be transcendent, that guy. He just needs to be 6'8" and really, really
maybe
good.
It's a center or whatever, So and then you have another piece. I think part of the reason why they're really not interested in, because here's another thing. You got Ant, we just mentioned. You got Nurkic. You can't trade your 2024 first round pick because right now it belongs to the Bulls unless it's in the lottery.
The Chicago Bulls. In the lottery.
That 23rd pick for Chris Murray. I mean, I don't know if the Bulls like Chris Murray, but had you said we'll give you this pick to finalize this, so now that frees up 24, 26, 28, 30, so we can make a trade. They didn't do that. Well, why? Maybe it's because in the back of their mind, or maybe even the front of their mind, they know that they could be headed, even if they don't trade Dame, back into the lottery again because the roster don't fit. It doesn't fit. And so
Damian Lillard, you can't make Damian Lillard be on a team that's going to the lottery.
I know you can't. That's why I hope Dame's asked out at this point, unless they pull off something magical, which I don't think is going to happen. So my thing here is that the Blazers don't seem to want to give up 24 and free up those other years, or even give up 23 as they didn't, because they know it's probably going to be in the lottery. Because the pathway right now is we're going to struggle unless because if you brought everyone back, you need Nurkic to not get hurt, Grant to not get hurt, Dame can't get hurt, and Scoot has to be, the second coming of a young Kobe for you to be a playoff team. And all of that's not going to happen.
How tall is Kobe?
Yes, exactly.
How tall is Kobe? He won
exactly.
6'2".
Exactly. I'm just saying. So it's just, it all points to one thing, man. It just does. And I was told last night of the draft that there's some uneasiness, there's some unhappiness, there's some trepidation, there's some understanding that this is not it for Dame, and how on earth they're gonna fix it in the next week or so. I'll build Cronin a statue out front of the Moda Center if he can pull this off and keep Dame happy, But all signs right now point to the fact that both parties need to part ways, and Dame can go somewhere else and win, and the Blazers can do a full-on rebuild. So they can start your boy, Scoot. As I say, he's your boy.
Look, there's only two things that can, in my mind, that could happen. One, Damian Lillard changes his mind, and says, you know what, I'm cool with staying here forever no matter what.
Right.
Or he says, he moves on. Now, here's the thing. I feel a little bit Joe Cronin, might have just been trying to call his bluff. Because why would they want Damian Lillard to stay on this team as constructed? Are you trying to win a championship? It doesn't work. You got 3 guys right now on your roster, that all play the same position, and they're all ball-heavy guys. And they can't defend. It's not. Look, Scoot might end up being a great defender.
A good defender, but he's going to be 19 playing against the NBA. Right. There's no good player in the NBA, 25, 26, 27, who's going to be intimidated by Scoot Henderson.
You can't know how to play against look, he's played in the G League, and he was good, but not great, and no one was.
No, I know, but I'm just saying.
It's just like playing
people are trying to say,
he
got professional experience.
But it's not NBA.
Yes. Whatever.
Look, saying that he's not your normal 19-year-old is duh. He's in the NBA at 19. I was kicking butt in soccer intramurals at 19. Of course he's not the normal 19. Look at him. He looks like a god. I'll give him that. He's in great shape. I don't doubt that he is the best 19-year-old, the Blazers might have ever drafted. So, But it doesn't matter. You do not know how to guard Jimmy Butler. You know how I know? No one can guard Jimmy Butler sometimes. Like, you can't, like, what is Russell Westbrook, the guy you want him to be, going to do? You don't think he's going to be able to get by him? Of course he is. Because that's what Russell Westbrook's done better than anyone. James Harden, good luck. That's who you guard now. That's who you guard. James Harden, like, what is he doing? How's that legal, right? Like, I mean, this is not a league where you just step in and you're a lockdown defender. It takes time, especially when you haven't had to be a lockdown defender because you've been so athletically, advanced past anyone you've ever played. It doesn't work. You can't have three guys playing the same position as your best players. And you can't win in the NBA with three guys, 6'2", 6'3", who can't guard at all. And oh, by the way, Shaedon Sharpe's best position is the 2. So if you're going to play your three best players at one time, your hope, now this is your hope. Like, we don't know yet because you said you need advance. The best case scenario is your three best players are Damian Lillard, Scoot Henderson, and Shaedon Sharpe. Well, guess what? Now Shaedon Sharpe's playing the 3, so he's got to guard threes. Like, so it just doesn't make any sense. There's no coach in the world that's like, oh, that I can work with that and win a championship. And Damian Lillard, even if they made those moves, those magical moves that you're talking about, he's not stupid. He's not going to think that team's taking down Denver. He doesn't think that team's taking down, Phoenix as they build it up. He doesn't think it's taking down a healthy Golden State team with Draymond back and possibly Chris Paul as the backup point guard. Like, it's just not a real thing. So, and also the weird part is everyone has said that has been around this team, who's followed this team, what do they appreciate so much about Damian Lillard as a person, not a player? He does what he says. He's honest. He does what he says. He means. Well, he said it.
He means what he says.
And immediately after Joe Cronin said, I haven't spoken to Dame since Tuesday, Chris Haynes, the media person that we all know and love, great guy, who's most connected to Dame, sends out a tweet that says, Damian Lillard has not been in recent contact with the Portland Trail Blazers organization about the draft. Like, that's not a like mistake. Chris didn't send that out without any connection with the camp.
Here's my one thing. Here's my one response to that.
He's not happy.
Here's my one response to that. Oh, yeah, I hear what you're saying there. So Cronin said that they talked to him and they told him that they likely were going to keep the pick. So I think they told him that, look, here's what's out there. The question, what I want to know is, was there a trade passed on that Dame would have wanted? And that's sort of the big mystery. But they did tell him they're probably going to keep the pick. And so maybe nothing changed. So then they had nothing else to tell him. So they just went ahead and made the pick. And that's why they haven't talked.
Right. And look, I think Damian Lillard would believe Joe Cronin. I don't think it matters whether there was. I mean, obviously, they told him. It matters if they turned down Zion. You know what I mean?
I think Lillard knows what was available.
I'm just saying, like, that would matter.
Lillard knows what was available.
So, to me, even if I think Dame could completely understand and agree why Joe Cronin wouldn't trade Scoot Henderson for even Siakam. Maybe that was it for a 1-year rental. Like, maybe he said, like, Dame, we can't do that. That's a 1 year. That gives us a window of 1 year. And we're going to trade away a 19-year-old that we think is transcendent. To me, all that matters, not whether it was the right thing or the wrong thing to do as far as not trading, is that it didn't happen. Like, that's all that matters should matter to Dame. If either he wants to go try to win a championship or he doesn't. He's not saying, like, well, if they try and it doesn't work, then I'm cool with being on a lottery team again. 2 years gone. His last 2 years, Aaron, completely wasted as far as his NBA, the basketball side. He took the year off to get the injury only because they tanked. Last year, they gave up, they tanked. He had a great year. They were awful. They finished, in the lottery. Like, that's 2 years of his career, and he's now 33. The Blazers are lucky that Damian Lillard is not just great at basketball. He's got 3 kids. He's a huge family guy. He's got music. He's got entrepreneurship. He's got so many other things that he could. That's why he's still here. If he was just basketball, he would have been gone because all he would care about is that championship. But now he's like, it's a priority and it's not for you. Why would he why would he not? Why would he stay? Like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand. The only reason to stay is to not leave.
I hear you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes that's enough. We've all, I've stayed at jobs longer because I was dating a woman and maybe we get married, right? So I'm going to stay, because I don't want to move. But there's the only reason to not go is not to win. There's no title there. It's just because you want to stay and you want to be a Blazer for life, which is not a terrible thing. You're super rich. You're good. You're making $50 million the next 3 years every year. So, but you want to win a title, there's no path, in my opinion. Even in Fentress's magical world, where they're playing in the Western Conference Finals and they're up 3-1, I don't see how you get there.
So here's some names real quick of really good point guards. Just recently, obviously, Rose, you mentioned, Westbrook, Kyrie, Harden, Wall. Wall was supposed to be a superstar talent, number 1 overall pick. Injuries hurt him, obviously. Dame, Curry.
He was until he got hurt.
When you look at that group, like you look at those 7 guys who right now, of those guys, I think at least six are going to be Hall of Famers. The only one's probably Wall. I think Rose gets in just because he got an MVP. Westbrook, Kyrie for sure. Harden, Dame, obviously. So the only one who has a title, 2, Curry and Kyrie. But then you look at Westbrook. Westbrook's interesting to me in this conversation because the knock on Scoot right now is shooting, which could improve. But in a lot of ways, what's Westbrook? Westbrook is a hit or attack the rim, but can't shoot from the perimeter very well, which has really hurt his career because the league now is to the point where if you can't hit the 3,
they figured it out.
Well, if you can't hit the 3, you're a liability. Teams just leave wide open because they don't want you to drive because that's what you do. And so you worry, like if Scoot comes in shooting 32% on threes and he's playing a lot, you're in trouble. He's going to end up being a negative overall because he's 19, doesn't quite know what he's doing, and he can't shoot.
And he's playing the shooting guard. He's playing the 2 that Dame's playing.
Harden, defensive issues. Kyrie, just ridiculous. Wall, injuries. Curry, obviously, he's the guy who's truly transcended, and along with Dame, who's an adult. So my point here is that, if Scoot somehow ends up in this group, and we can put Moran in there. He's had off-field troubles. You want to put Trey in there. He's pretty good, but shoots too much. Luka is awesome. He's transcended, but he's out of the playoffs. So my point is, it's kind of hit or miss.
And he's not 6'2".
He's not 6'2". That's true, too. Exactly. So the thing is, like, you just look at that list and you just can see all the pitfalls that could be there for someone like this. So it's no guarantee that everything's gonna go hunky dory for Scoot. And so that, to me, that's why you already got the marquee superstar who does everything right and just wants to win. That's why Scoot had to go to bring in a star, even if it's only for 3 years, because now you have 2 stars and you know what you have in Dame, whereas you don't know what you have in Scoot. Okay. That being said, since that's dead and buried and there's nothing we can do about it, because Scoot, I'm told, is not going anywhere. There's not going to be some post-draft trade down the line. If he was going to be traded, it was going to be on draft night. So, like I said earlier, making the playoffs with Dame barely and getting bounced the first round does you nothing. I don't believe they have the assets to get what you need to get to help Dame, because I think number 3 had to go. So the rebuild needs to start right now. Dame needs to say, show me a magical deal you can make, a la Fentress, and I'll consider staying. If not, it's time. And even if he has to be the bad guy, because I don't think anyone would consider him the bad guy. The whole league wants him to leave. Blazers fans get it. They recognize what's going on, and Blazers fans are hoping they get a haul for him. So moving forward, you're looking at Scoot, Simons, Sharp, Watford, Eubanks. You roll that out there next year, and you're going to be bad. And you're going to get another top 5 pick.
Not good.
And guess what? Even with that next top 5 pick, the next year, you're going to be better, but still bad. And you might get another lottery pick. But after a while, all this badness is going to wear out, and people are going to look around and go, oh, wait, yeah, we got these 2 transcendent stars who are supposed to be gods, but we still stink. Why? Because they're going to be 21 and 22 and still figuring it out. Meanwhile, how about this? Charlotte, who would you rather be right now? Who would you rather have right now? Scooter and Sharp, or LaMelo and Henderson? Or not Henderson, sorry, Miller, sorry. Who would you rather have? Be honest.
Miller.
Health aside, Ball's been a little hurt, but still.
Yeah, I have no idea. I haven't seen.
I got
Scoot.
6'7", 6'9" in Charlotte.
That's...
You got 6'2", 6'4.5" here. I'm taking the 6'7", 6'9".
Right.
Why isn't LaMelo? Is LaMelo transcendent? What does Scoot do?
No.
Okay, how is Scoot transcendent, but LaMelo isn't? There's nothing Scoot does better than LaMelo. Do you see my point? My point is there's dudes out there like Scoot. He's a very good player at a position where there's a lot of very good players. And so I don't believe he's going to be a number one, a championship caliber number one, whereas Dame is borderline because of his size. So you do everything you can to win with him. I just think that the Scoot thing, yeah, he's going to be good and Sharp's going to be good. But one more thing. In 3 years, you're going to be sitting around going, how do we get another free agent to come here to Portland to play with these two guys? And you're not going to be able to.
Well, that's a really good scenario, though, because there's also the scenario where they don't want to stay. Because the one element that people seem to ignore is that Damian Lillard is LaMarcus left.
Yes, he did.
So I mean, and that's my time, right? I'm not even going back with others. LaMarcus left, and LaMarcus could have stayed and tried to play.
He left Dame.
Here. That team was really good. Yes. So, and because he didn't love it enough, and Dame has stayed. And that's rare. Yeah. All the reasons why you can't get a free agent is the same reason why people leave if they want. Now, I think this is a great place to play. I think the fan base is great. I think I've never really bought into that completely. And also, if you didn't screw up the draft so many times or made some decent moves, you'd be playing for a title. As I always say, there's plenty of teams. It's not like San Antonio is the greatest place in the world to live. And, this stuff about, tax and this and whatever. I'm like, what? Yeah, look, that they make so much money. I'm not saying it's not an element, but it's used two different ways. Everyone wants to go to New York. Nobody wants to pay, income tax. No, everyone wants to go to the Lakers. No one wants to pay income tax. Well, they're the two highest income tax states. So you use whatever you want, right? No one wanted to go to the Clippers. And they all wanted to go to the Lakers. Why? Because the ownership was terrible. Now people want to go to the Clippers. Why? Because their owner isn't terrible. He spends $1 gazillion. They're going to get a brand new arena, and people want to go there. And, yeah, no one wants to go to, this place, that place. Oklahoma City, suddenly pretty darn good. They might get another player. If you do the right things, you can win. It might be harder in Milwaukee, and you might need to draft the greatest, a guy to get you there. But I think the bet. Scoot has a chance to be the first Scoot Henderson. It happens. I watched Steph Curry play in college. I covered the Southern Conference the entire time he was there. I knew he was really, really good, Aaron. I did. And I thought he was a first-round draft pick. I did not know he was going to change the game. He is truly transcendent. Right. Dame is Dame because of Curry, in a way. The guy's shooting 40-footers, that is because of Steph Curry. And he changed the game. I saw him every day, at almost every one of his games at Davidson, and I didn't see it coming. I didn't even know he could play point guard, really. Because he didn't. He played the two. He weighed 112 pounds, and he played the two. And he was rocking College of Charleston and taking down, Western Carolina. He wasn't beating Duke. I didn't see it. I knew he'd be good, but I didn't know he'd be transcendent. So you never know. That's what you hope for. I see what you're saying, but that's what they went with. They went with that. But there's no place for Damian Lillard in that attempt. You played your cards the way you think it was best. The part that I'm disappointed in is, again, they didn't go all in. They didn't take a huge risk. Again, auto draft could have gotten you these things last night. Everyone knew it took Scoot. Murray was the highest guy on the list. So that's what you did. And now my question is, all the other parts, what does Grant do? What does Simon say? It's not just Dame. There's other parts of this. Grant came here to play with Dame. He can't be super thrilled and be like, oh, yeah, I'm definitely re-signing like he's been saying. And if you're Simons, the nicest, sweetest guy in the world, that's why it's odd that he's your favorite, because that's not you.
Wow.
Oh, look at him. He just got mad. I'm like, does Simons finally say, hey, this is, you guys keep trying, you're not you're not finding ways for me to be the guy on this team, I'm out. Like, how funny is it if Simons goes first? Like, if he asks out, like, how awesome would that be? Like, hey, yeah, by the way, I demand a trade. And Dave's like, whoa, sir, I go first.
Oh my God.
You know, they have young players that they'll be bad next year, but I'm interested in seeing Sharp and Scoot play, you know, and do some things.
It's interesting
because it's again,
but after 20 losses, you know, when they're 5-20, it stops being interesting.
Yeah, but I'm just saying when Dame and LaMarcus were together, that was fun, right? Like they weren't good, but it was fun.
They made the playoffs the second year. No,
they got good fast.
Second year, they got
good fast.
First year was fine. Yep. Second year they won a playoff series.
Yeah, but that said, LaMarcus wasn't 19 and Dame wasn't 19. You know, they were. LaMarcus had been in the league and Dame was not a one and done, and then even when they got CJ, I mean CJ was a 4-year college player and super mature, and then he didn't play his first year. You know what I mean? Like these things don't happen magically. You know, the thing that stinks is they tore it down because they said they were going to build it up quick, and that's not true. And Joe Cronin said it. It's easy to tear it down. It's really hard to build it back up, and it's really hard to build the plane while you're trying to fly it at the same time. And basically what it comes down to me is that Joe Cronin realized, oh, yeah, I can't build the plane while we're flying. Like we're going to have to land and start over. And that's what they're doing. And I think it's the smart play. And I think it's dumb to try to thread the needle at this point. Like I think you made your bed. Now you got to go.
I agree. It's time. Let me ask you this one more thing before we go here. Does any of this? So I've never been a Neil O'Shea basher anyway, but for Neil O'Shea bashers, does any of this exonerate Neil a little bit? I mean, once again, all the assets in the world and he couldn't pull off a deal. Couldn't pull off a deal to bring someone in here. For whatever reason, I'm just saying, once again. Yeah. He had last summer. He had a trade deadline.
So it doesn't exonerate Neil for me because to me, what Neil said should never be said. So if you believe that, then don't take the job, right? Joe at least is not saying like it's making a ton of excuses. Your job is your job, and Neil O'Shea made excuses for why he didn't do certain things. And then he said things that just weren't real. Like, you know, that he said things like it's not the roster's problem. Like you don't get exonerated for throwing your coach and the players all under the bus. Like what? Like that to me. And he was a jerk at times, obviously. So I don't think that Neil O'Shea was a bad GM. And anyone who thinks that Neil O'Shea was a bad GM is just wrong. They went to the playoffs for like 10 straight years. That's not easy to do. And we don't know what he was asked to do by the owner because Paul didn't really talk. So and it's really hard to win a championship. And it's really hard to be really good. And they were really good. They couldn't find the magic bullet. What he should be criticized for the most is his drafts. He did not do a good job.
Dame, he's got CJ, you got Trent, you got Ant. He had some good second round picks. Who else did a lot of the other picks were traded away, and they were later in the draft. I think he did solid.
I would say Myers, Zach, Myers.
Hold on,
those are chances that were lottery picks, and he blew it.
Well, but no one went after Myers Leonard. Myers Leonard, he can't be blamed for because hold on. There was no.
I'll blame him for Myers. He was a bust.
Okay, no, but Myers Leonard was drafted. Hold on, I'll break this down for you. And this is why I don't hold. When I look at people's draft picks, I always go look and see who was available after that person and when. So if you draft someone at 13 and he doesn't work out, but you have to go 8-9 picks down the road to find someone who did work out, then I can't blame the GM for that pick because there wasn't who else did have taken. And hindsight's always 20/20 as well. It wasn't like an obvious miss. So they took Myers Leonard, Jeremy Lamb, Kendall Marshall, John Henson, Maurice Harkless, Royce White, Tyler Zeller, Terrence Jones, Andrew Nicholson, Evan Fournier. So you have to go all the way down to 20 and Evan Fournier, he was a decent player. Then Sullinger, Fab Melo.
Well, not anymore. He's not. Not anymore. He's not. Just ask the Knicks.
Literally, there's no one else in the first round that would have been necessarily a better pick. I'd much, it's almost like trying to blame him, for taking CJ over Giannis. Giannis went 15, CJ went 10th. We can sit here and say, well, had he made that pick, they've got 3 titles, right? And everything's hunky-dory. But Giannis went 15th for a reason, because no one thought he was going to be that great. And every team in the NBA could have had him, because anyone could trade the 15 and get him. Even in 2017, the whole Zach Collins thing, if Zach Collins is healthy, he's a solid NBA player. The reason why it looks bad is because he got injured, and then you see Bam and you see Donovan Mitchell. But again, if Bam was supposed to be so great, why was he there at 14? I'm a Bulls fan. The Bulls took Lowry at 7. I wish they would have taken Bam or Donovan Mitchell at 7. So everybody pretty much missed on those two. So I'm not going to necessarily blame Olshey for that, but that is the one. That's the one. The other picks were pretty good.
That is a
I
big
know,
one.
but again, what are we talking about here? Like four guys after Collins were good, and that's 4 out of 20. So you had a 20% chance of guessing on the other ones. Go ahead.
To me, you always got to, the GMs that kill it are the ones who find the diamonds in the rough.
True.
To find the late first rounders that end up being starters or above, or a second rounder that ends up being, a formidable player.
Right. But when you do that, that's great.
I think he missed.
I know, but when you do that, you're doing something great. You're doing something great. When you don't do that, that doesn't make you bad.
That's
I know,
what
but
I'm
that
saying.
doesn't make you bad if you don't do that. Because that's a really ridiculous.
Which is what did I say? Anyone who thinks that Neil
drafting. You said
no,
drafting.
I said anyone who thinks
you
that
said
Neil
drafting was bad.
Okay, well, I'm just saying. My thing is anyone who says that Neil O'Shea was a bad GM is wrong.
We agree.
He's not. He wasn't.
I think overall his picks were pretty strong,
and that's where I'm just saying that's the only place the Blazers could have
been better.
That's where you can look at it. I don't know what trades he turned down. I think he should have traded CJ earlier. I think he waited too long. I think there was a window there where CJ's was worth more, and then once Joe Cronin got him and did trade him, it was not the optimal time to trade him. I think he tried. I think he stuck with with that too long. I think that Simons was an asset after he drafted him. People knew how good he was getting, and because that's the other time, right? You draft the guys at the position where you don't have the need. You talk about it all the time, but then you trade it and you get a need. Either way, he wasn't able to find that piece, and LaMarcus walked. Again, I don't know if it was Neil's fault or not, but he walked. And once LaMarcus walked, they couldn't replace him. They couldn't replace him. That's why I'm just saying he wasn't a bad GM. He wasn't a super. He did other things though to me that are, make you. If you're saying that this shows that Neil O'Shea, everything Neil O'Shea said was true, no, because he said some things that I'll just think was stupid. That wasn't helpful. But yes, I don't think it exonerates Neil. I think it shows that Joe this is not what a seasoned GM says. A seasoned GM doesn't tell everybody that he's going to go all in and that he's going to trade the pick, and then he doesn't. It doesn't mean that Joe Cronin didn't make the right decision. It doesn't mean that I think Joe Cronin's draft was perfect. I think I would have been pretty darn good in this draft, though. I think it was hard to mess up. If all you were going to do was draft, auto draft would have got you probably the same things. Like you thanked all those scouts in the beginning. I'm like, what? For picking Scoot Henderson? Everybody in this room would have picked Scoot Henderson if you're going to draft. Like this wasn't a difficult, draft. And in the end, you might be, I think Charlotte made the bigger risk in the draft by drafting what many people consider to be by position. They might be, right. And their guy, Miller might end up being an all-NBA player for 10 years, and Scoot might end up being John Wall, like really good and then bad, or just not good at all. Because if he doesn't learn to shoot at all, he's going to have to be Russell Westbrook. And that that doesn't work as well in the NBA anymore. But no, I don't think it exonerates him. I think it puts a lot of pressure on Joe Cronin because he just decided to play the long game on a short leash.
Well, to me, if you were a Neil O'Shea hater, I think you just saw how difficult it is to pull off trades, to get guys, and it was difficult when you had the most assets you've ever had. Like you had Jaden and you had number 3 pick, you had other picks, all types of stuff you could have done, and you did nothing. And if Dame leaves and Grant leaves, you would basically trade CJ for Chris Murray, and you would have tanked a couple years into some picks. Which, by the way, tanking is not a skill. You know, I can't give anyone credit for tanking into some picks, and we'll see. You know what Cronin can do building around.
It's the lack of skill.
We'll see what Cronin can do building around Scoot and Shaden. And as they improve and the picks get further and further back in the draft, and can you go out and get free agents, or can't you talk about accumulating assets for a trade down the road? Well, he's been saying that since the CJ and Norman Powell trades. So that trade deadline, the summer, the next trade deadline, this draft and this summer. So he keeps accumulating assets for the big move that hasn't come yet, when he's been trying to make that big move to win with Dame. And so he's looking like he might be entering an era where he's trying to do that while not bringing someone to play with Dame, but bringing someone to play with Scoot and Sharp. Anyway, we'll see what happens. But I'm good, man.
That's if he's still
that's
there.
The other thing too.
He's still there.
When you
start the odds of Joe Cronin being there when these guys get good, to me, I mean,
it's unusual.
With ownership being where it's at, but doing the right thing. I respect that, and I respect Joe, and I think he's a nice guy. And again, I think he made good picks. I just you shouldn't just. The reason why there's disappointment is because of what he said.
Don't oversell. Say we're going to do our best.
Don't say you're going to do something and then not do it.
And they sold the season ticket holders. We're building around Dame.
That's what I'm talking about.
We're going to do this. We're going to do that, and then you didn't do it. And again, we're not saying that it wasn't smart of him to maybe shift to what he did, because they didn't know they were going to have 3. They didn't, if this had been, one of the Thompson twins, maybe it's an easier decision to move off of that. It's someone who he says is a unicorn. So anyway, I have a headache.
Here's the thing: if you after the lottery, he could have shifted. He knew what he was getting after the lottery, and he didn't. He said they're going to use a 3 pick to build around Dame. He had the opportunity right there to shift and say, hey, we moved up to 3. At this point in time, we want Damian Lillard to retire as a Blazer. What we're going to do is what's best for the franchise. What we believe will get us close as the best and fastest route to a championship. Right. He didn't. Even last night after he picked him, he said, yes, the goal is still to build around Dame. The only difference last night was many people in the room didn't believe that.
Right. And maybe so
because they couldn't see it.
You said so we're sitting here saying he shouldn't have made promises that he ultimately didn't keep. Maybe what's going on as well is he's not going to say, oh yeah, Dame's available. So that maybe it makes it, people have to offer more to make him available, almost like the whole sale of the team is going, right? People have to offer more just to even make the franchise available. And just like people did to him with the 3rd pick. Oh, you want Siakam? Well, you're going to have to also. So maybe he's trying to leverage it that way. If you don't make Dame available, then it makes it tougher to get Dame. And there's going to be some teams desperately after Dame. Agree?
And last night was not, let me be clear. I think what he said was the right thing to say.
Right.
I mean, he had to, in my opinion. Last night was not the time to come in and go, yeah, you got us. Yeah. We're trading Dave. Like, I 100% think he did the best. I think he did a great job. And I think his face and the attitude in the room made it clear that this was not, the elephant was in the room. We know what we just did, and we haven't talked to Dame yet. So we are not about to go in here and tell Aaron Fentress that, oh, yeah, you got us, Aaron. We drafted all those players. He said he didn't want them. So, yep, we're trading Dame tomorrow. Like, he did the right thing at that point, but everyone understood what the ingredients, you've just created here and what Dame said before. So let me be clear. I think last night he did the right thing he said all the right things. What I'm saying is he painted himself in a corner, and then in the end he did what was best for the franchise. It's just hard to sell that as somehow like there was camp A and there's camp B. Either we keep the pick or we trade the pick and build around Dame. If we keep the pick, Dame has already said that he wants to, he's not going to like it. So to me, that was, if you believe Dame and you believe what the rhetoric's been all along, one thing shifted, and that was that Dame on that season ticket is probably not, that's not a correct message anymore, or one in which I can see, hey, that's a great thing. They don't let us make the move, so maybe we're wrong. I just doubt it.
Imagine telling Dame that the best player we're going to get to help you win is a guy you can't really be on the court with.
Right, or if you are on the court, you're gonna have to play
and guard other people's twos, or Scoot will guard them, I guess, and you'll get obliterated by the other team's best one.
But like we're thinking our best way is to take what you've done to become a top 75 player in this league history. We're thinking you should try a different position, and it's for a 19-year-old.
But he's transcended. All right.
I'm just saying, like, it's a crazy conversation. That's a crazy conversation.
I know. All right. Wow, we went an hour. Good work.
This is like therapy. It's like
gotta get it out. You got to get it out.
I feel
Sometimes
better.
You got to get it out.
I feel better.
You got to get it out.
I hope people listening feel a little better too. That's what we're supposed to do. It's not supposed to be about my therapy, right? It's supposed to be theirs.
Hopefully. All right. That is it for this episode of the Blazer Focus Podcast. Thanks for listening. Please click the subscribe button, and we'll be back next week because we got free agency starts the 30th, and you can start completing trades on the 6th. I'm going to Summer League for at least 4 games because Scoot's going to be there. I got to watch all 4 of these games. So a lot of action coming up here on the Blazer Focus Podcast. We'll be back soon. Thanks.